you've mentioned blending science and magic in
Yeah.
your modality. Could you elaborate what the magic represents in your practice and why you feel it's a key component alongside science approaches?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually started off with my business Crystal Clarity almost 10 years ago when I opened that, and that was Reiki and coaching, life coaching. And I'm a very science-minded person. I need to know why something works or how something works. And I, you know, kind of fell into the world of energy, but I went at it with a real skeptical approach. And I
Oh,
said, I need this proven to me. I need to really see and feel and do and understand in order for me to believe in this whole metaphysical realm. And the more that I got into it, and the more that I worked with it and met with people and learned about it, the more I realized that this really is science based, even though it seems like magic. And
uh,
so when I'm referring to the magic, I'm referring to your belief system. I'm referring to your foundation and the ideas that there are things in this world that happen that we can't see, we can't feel, we can't touch, but we know. We know that they're there. And that's the magic side. So we're working, yes, with, I'm a diehard student of psychology. I absolutely love, I will, eat a psychology book for breakfast. I just love it. But at the same time, I also know that there's so much more than just the cognitive brain, right? And so we've got to dive not just into the psychology part of it, but we need to recognize that we are energetic beings and that this energy field that we live in, that's surrounding us, that's in us, it's outside of us, it's constantly moving, it's constantly flowing. We have to be willing to recognize that just because we can't see it, it is still there and it is well proven and well founded. And so
right,
that's when I shifted from my business was Crystal Clarity to now Life Alchemy, because it
right.
is a beautiful blending of the science approach, the psychology, and what I like to call the magic. But that's the spirituality and the metaphysics of understanding that there are things that we cannot see, touch, taste, smell, but they still exist and they still are there. And so I do share with clients or potential clients when they come to me that one of the things that we both have to agree on is that there is a higher something, right?
Right.
And you can call it what you want to call it. That doesn't affect how it affects you. But you do, in order to work with me, you do have to have some kind of foundational belief in a higher being, a higher source, energy, God, whatever it is. And so that's the science and the magic coming together.
Oh, great. Wow, that is a great explanation because there are preconceived notions when you say
Mhm.
magic and then they go a certain way. And
Sure.
honestly, that's not how you mean it. So I'm so glad you were able to articulate that and help us walk through that. So now you call yourself a life
Life
alchemist.
alchemist, yes.
Yes. Can you walk us through what the alchemy process actually looks like for a client and like what steps are involved in that transformation?
Yeah, absolutely. So alchemy is a modality that I use. And once upon a time, I love the romanticism of it. The once upon a time where there were the wizards and the scientists and they didn't really understand chemistry per se, but they wanted to change lead into gold, right? That was the
Right.
basis of alchemy. But alchemy was using the science that they had at the time. And it was also blending, and they believed very strongly in magic at the time. And so they were trying to use science and magic together to blend and make gold. And I love the metaphor of that because I'm using the science and the magic and we're blending it together and I'm helping you, guiding you into this golden life, this higher potential of yours that exists. And it really is based on the fact that once upon a time, and this, this is all psychology now, before the age of 7, your belief system was instilled in you. You were walking around in what's called the theta brainwave state, which is essentially a meditative state or a hypnosis state. And so everything that was happening around you was being soaked in by you, but you didn't have the ability to judge it yet. And so you just took it in. And so you were surrounded by people, hopefully well-intentioned people, sometimes not so well-intentioned, but even the well-intentioned people, they had a programming that they were taught that kept them in this box, right? And so this box was this big and you could never go beyond it because, it was too risky or for whatever reason. So they then passed those beliefs on to you, and you have been growing up and becoming an adult and making decisions based on the 7-year-old mind.
Right.
And so, what we need to do now in order to really live into our full potential is we need to release those beliefs that have been holding us back. And then we're going to instill new beliefs that will move you forward. And so, the blending again of the science and magic, there's coaching involved. And then there's also hypnosis slash guided meditation. People get a little worried about the word hypnosis too, so we might want to tap into that.
I have that as my next question.
Okay. So we use a blend of coaching so that from coaching, what I do is I really gain an understanding of what do you want? We get really, really clear on that question. And that's a hard question for people to answer because for their entire lives, they're taught that they're not allowed to want. You know, from the time you're a child, and mom, I want this and I want this and I want this, or daddy, can I have this? And the answers are, we don't have enough money, or you don't need anything else, or whatever it is. It always boils down to no. And that stops you from asking. And so
Right.
all of a sudden you become this adult who has no idea how to decide what you want. And so through the coaching, we boil it down, and I have a whole process for this, but we boil down to what do you really want out of your life? And then we go into the energy sessions where I take you through some guided meditations, and I use I'll say my intuition. I use my intuition to see what you're seeing and to guide you into a space where you can now see for yourself you living this life that you want. And when you can see this for yourself in, clear color vision, you also start to understand that you can achieve it.
Right.
And so this is that reprogramming, right? So you didn't believe you could achieve it before, but once you start seeing yourself living it in your mind, it makes it easier for you to achieve it in this reality. And so one of the principles of metaphysics is everything is created twice. It's created first in your mind, and then it's created in real life. And so the way that I teach my clients this is, just look around your room. Anything in that room first began as an idea, and then it was translated into physical form. Well, that's what we do for your life too. We need to have the idea first. We need to get really, really clear on that idea. And that's what we do in the meditation, in the guided meditation or the hypnosis. And then you can step out into your life and you can start making decisions from a higher space than you were before without all of the limitations or all of the fears that were holding you back.
Right. That's beautiful.
Was,
And
was that clear enough?
yes, very clear. And what kept going through my mind is we live very parallel kind of lives.
Hmm.
As you know from my AI imagination presentation, you kind of know what happened to me as a kid and
Hmm.
what switched, and that was about that age, around 7. And
Yep.
then what you didn't know is I had a fourth grade teacher, and she was this older German woman, stocky. She's built for birth, I guess. I don't know. Um, and I cried when I got her because there were two different teachers, and my brothers are twins. So one got one and one got this one, Miss Harrington. Oh my goodness. I went in there, and she told us, we're all selfish. We're asking for money for our parents and all this other stuff. And I went home, and I never, at that point on, what was that, fourth grade, maybe 10? I can't
Hmm.
remember, can't do the math. But I would not ask my parents for money to go to the movies with friends because I was told I was bad if I did that. And,
Yep.
then I started working, underage just to get money so I could do something or whatever. But from that point on, it was just like, I'm bad if I ever ask. And
Yep.
so, that was kind of funny. But then also in the presentation, I took you back to childhood, and I did this, I said the same thing.
Hmm.
Everything comes from an idea first,
Yep.
and then from there we create amazing, magical, wonderful things, but it all has to come from our imagination and an idea. So we're very much in line on,
Yes.
you have it in life, I have it in business, and it all works together. So I totally resonated with what you just said, and I know other people will in their life. We have so many blocks, and as our life, when we went through, we had other influences coming in, and that childlike wonder and possibilities
Hmm.
just goes away because of other influences. And I wish we can get that back. And it sounds like with your coaching and your
Hmm.
modalities that we can, and we can
Yes.
become that bright light, that
Hmm.
blooming flower that we were supposed to be, that
Yes.
we were basically put in the dark and covered and said, don't bloom.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And again, oftentimes that came out of good intentions. I know in my own life, in my own childhood, I was often told don't do certain things because I was going to make somebody else feel bad.
Right.
Right? That was going to make someone else feel bad about themselves. And so then I started to just shrink up and shrink back and hold back because I didn't want to hurt the
Yep.
other people,
Yep.
And so they were the people who were teaching me this, they were well intentioned,
Right.
but it taught me now as an adult, I had to go through all of my own alchemy and I had to change my own beliefs to understand that it's perfectly fine for me to stand up and to shine. By me standing up and shining, that's sharing my light with other people. That can inspire them to turn their own light on. By me not sharing my light, that's keeping everything in the dark.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so we need to learn those things. Even when you were talking about the money, that's a self-worth issue. That completely translates into somebody's self-worth. So if you're told, don't ask your parents for money, you're selfish when you do it or whatnot, you're actually forming a belief in your head, I'm not worth spending money on.
Yep.
And so now all of a sudden you have literally a self-worth issue.
Yep.
So you grow up, and I had the same thing, and this is terrible, but I refused to buy myself clothes. So in my 30s, I was still wearing clothes that I was wearing in high school and it wasn't, you know, it was because I refused to spend money on myself, and that was a self-worth issue.
Yes. The funny thing is, I've got 30-year-old clothes in my closet that I'll wear until they fall apart. And then
Yeah.
when I get holes and stuff, and I go, okay, I guess I got to replace it. But it's
Yep.
the whole thing of I did the same thing. Plus, you worked hard to have money to afford those clothes, and now they have to
Hmm.
last a lifetime if they can. Don't buy the trendy stuff. You got to buy the
Right.
stuff that is there because it's got to last. And
Right. It's
so
got to be sensible.
that is so, I mean, I'm telling you, Courtney, we must have been separated at birth or something. I don't know. We just went a little different paths, but we are parallel.
Yeah.
It's just